Hello, I'm Olivia Otero, and my storybook was about marine invertebrates. I associated this with SpongeBob as they are also marine invertebrates, and most of their characters are. For example, SpongeBob is a sea sponge, which has no organs and no backbone, especially no backbone, because that's what really identifies them as marine invertebrates. Moving on, Patrick the Star, it's sea star, no backbone, also a marine invertebrate. Plankton is also a marine invertebrate. Mr. Krabs, Gary, this lobster from the series, I don't remember the name. Well, a lot of other characters too, but I decided to focus, of course, on the main characters, and I forgot to mention there's also Squidward. Well, the point is that throughout the building process of my storybook, there were a lot of successes and also challenges. One of the major challenges probably being the construction of the pop-ups, like knowing where to place what and what to paste here and there, and also probably like what pop-up to include on this certain place, like how to organize your pop-ups. For example, maybe you found this really good pop-up and you knew you could do it and everything, but then when you did it, then you were like, how am I supposed to use this inside my storybook? So yeah, you had to do a lot of scrolling. There was a lot of time where you had to think, how can I make this pop-up fit? Then the construction was also hard. I had to rebuild, like in my first two classes, I had to rebuild like 3 different pop-ups because I either did it one step wrong or I couldn't figure it out. And that was definitely one of the hardest things. This is certainly one of the most interactive pop-ups I made, and it had the influence of Aurora, as she also implemented something like this in her own. The source that I used for this pop-up, which was a mini book inside a book, was CraftSpace, a source you can find in YouTube. The picture up there is a picture of my making of this pop-up, and it shows the small piece of paper that I used under the mini book to make it stand out more and pop up. If I could change something from this pop-up, would be certainly the background colors, as I should have planned out more what I was going to put in there, and my idea changed over time, as I originally was going to put all the characters and explain them in that mini book, but then I realized that they were too big for that. This pop-up was slightly more complex, as the idea of these 3 layers was harder for me to understand. Also, I would like to mention that this one was way more planned out than the others, and probably the one that was mostly organized. The source of this pop-up is my friend Martina, which also did a similar pop-up in her book and taught me how to do it. Additionally, it was a struggle to be able to fit the second layer of paper inside the 2 layers, and that was certainly the most challenging thing relating to this pop-up. One of my favorite parts, certainly, was the drawing phase. I had to make a lot of Plankton, SpongeBob, and all those characters' drawings and put them organizedly amongst my storybook. However, some of them took really long, and by the end, I was aware that I had no time left, so I decided to begin printing, which was something I should have thought of before. This pop-up certainly was the hardest. First of all, because the idea was to make Mr. Krabs' arm move, and to do that, I had to cut off Mr. Krabs' arm from the drawing that I had already made. That was probably the toughest thing, because redoing that would also take a lot of time, as it was a specific technique called cross hatching, and it takes a while. Moving on, this technique was also pretty hard to decipher, as this pop-up, you couldn't really find it so easily on the internet. So with the help of my friend Martina, I was able to find out how to create this. As you can see above, it took several tries and even tryouts to test before actually cutting off Mr. Krabs' arm and putting it into action. Another issue encountered in the process of this making was certainly the disorganized places at the end and the mess made. Also, the picture above represents one of the failed tryouts, which happened several times, and the amount of work that I put in. My storyboard also changed a lot, as I didn't end up using the exact same thing, and actually probably didn't even end up using something quite similar, as I changed a lot of stuff in my final piece. First of all, the first storyboard that I created didn't have to do with SpongeBob, and I came up with the idea on further storyboards. Next, the original idea for a SpongeBob-themed storyboard was related to Plankton trying to obtain the formula, which was something that I kept the same, yet I didn't use the same story outline. I changed it quite a lot, as originally he was supposed to go to the depths and be battling SpongeBob's friends as he tried to obtain the formula. Now up above, you'll be able to see the final book, and I would also like to mention some stuff that I added to make it more appealing. Starting off with the glitter, as it was a pretty successful thing to add due to the texture and its look. First of all, it was a pretty shiny and shimmery thing, and it clearly attracted kids' eyesight towards it. As well, it sparkled. Moving on, its texture was also a pretty big factor on why I added it, as kids don't like to just touch smooth surfaces. They're more attracted to surfaces that they don't get to touch every single day, and glitter is certainly one of them. Not only that, but it also had its looks, as I already mentioned. Moving on, another thing that I added was a robotic font to match with Karen, as she's a computer. I searched up how to do it, and then I implemented it on some of the pages in which she had dialogue. Finally, I made the buffed out characters for a reason, as it's more attractive and funny to kids rather than just plain characters. Yes, SpongeBob is a thing that they find interesting and funny, yet buffed out characters make it even more, as kids have a tendency to think that either fat or buffed out things are more intriguing than normalized ones. As for a final mention, I would like to give credits to the pop-up channel, another source from YouTube, as the tryout pop-ups were done with their tutorials. And also, I would like to give credits to the art class, as the cross-hatching techniques comes from right there. Bye. Thank you.